with a Business is brought to you by Audible.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Married with a Business. I'm Craig.
And I'm Allison.
And we're married with a business. We're here to share tips and tricks and stories of what it's like to be a married couple that own and operate a company together, which we've been doing for over 20 years now. Crazy to think about.
Crazy. As you were saying, the name of the podcast, I felt like I wanted to do it in unison and be really corny.
I don't want to be that corny.
Okay, we won't be that corny. But what is happening lately?
So I have to tell you, our son's birthday was last weekend, and he wanted to go to a baseball game for his birthday. Well, we couldn't make it into Boston to see a Red Sox game. The time just didn't allow. So I took him to a minor league summer collegiate ball league game in a town called Brockton, which is close to us, a team called the Brockton Rocks, Allison. And it was the best time.
Really? You had a good time?
He had the best time. You didn't go with us. It was just me and the boys. The three boys went.
It was a boys' day.
It was a boys' day, and it was really fun. So we got there. It's a smaller minor league kind of team, so there weren't a ton of people there. We got there. They brought their gloves. They were really excited to maybe catch a foul ball or get a ball. They walk in and they go down and they get to throw warm-up practice with one of the other team's players. And so they were tossing, the player was on the field, they were tossing back and forth.
That's fun.
And then we were like walking through the stands before the game, checking things out. And, one of the kids that works for the team came down. He's wearing like a polo shirt and he said, "Can I ask your kids a question?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And he asked them if they wanted to read off the players' names over the PA system during the fifth inning. So they got to go up in the fifth inning, up to the press box and get to announce all the players' names. And
yeah, you sent me a picture of them in the press box. And at first I didn't know what was happening. I thought, oh, how did he get them into a private box? And then I realized where you were. And I was like, that's so cool. They're getting a tour.
It was, no. So then I sent you the videos of them doing the announcing. It was awesome. And so we got to go, they got to run the base afterwards. They got a couple autographs. The players who are all, college kids, they play in this league during the summer when they're not playing college baseball. And so they were super great. Like they came out, great facility over there. They're doing awesome. The Brockton Rocks, if you get a chance, stop by, check them out. If you're in the New England, Massachusetts, South Shore area of Boston. It was really fun. It's really affordable too.
Yeah, which was nice. We would have spent the money to go into Boston if we could have gotten tickets, but being able to go do this, I think he had a much better experience. He had a lot of fun. It was really kid friendly, and you guys, because of the affordability, you got to do a little bit more with them than you normally would have.
Well, and I know that, we're a baseball family. So like for us, and my boys, we love to watch baseball and see baseball and get baseball cards and all that stuff. And for us, it was kind of cool because they got to interact so much with, the other fans. Because it's instead of going to a game where there's 40,000 people, you go to a game and maybe there's 500 or 1,000 people. And so, it's much more up close and personal. And so I think they had we sat right behind home plate a couple of times because, there was availability in seats and we kind of walked around and sat everywhere. It was really, really fun. I had a great time.
So even though Another Tale from Home was about baseball, this was a baseball with a little different of a twist.
Yeah, right. It was baseball with a little different a twist. But anyways, it was a blast. If you get a chance, check it out. The Brockton Rocks. It was a good time. Allison, what are we talking about though this week on the show?
So today I've been thinking about time management and taking control of our time management again. I think that, every leader goes through these cycles where they feel like they have great balance and that they're managing really well. But then sometimes we get out of balance with our schedule and our commitments. And I feel like in 2022, you and I have been a little bit out of balance with managing our time efficiently sometimes.
Yeah, I saw this topic come up that we were recording this and I was like, oh, do we have to talk about this? I've been so bad about it this year.
Well, and I think sometimes the reason I pick topics is because they're very topical for what we're going through. And by being intentional about thinking about how I want to talk about it, it helps us address the issues that we're currently struggling with.
Well, and I think for us, it's kind of like a confluence of a lot of things that sometimes cause us to get into these situations. We have tried to get better about tempering what we get involved in.
Right.
And so I think that we've gotten better at that. But with that said, some of the things we are involved in take a lot of time, and then work takes a lot of time, and what we're trying to do with our company takes a lot of time. So,
and we go through seasons.
Yeah. And so you go through these seasons, and yes, I don't disagree with you. I feel like for a lot of 2022 so far, my time management has been subpar.
But like we've talked about in previous episodes, the first quarter and first half of 2022, we had a lot of big projects. We moved. We've hired and trained 2 project managers. We are taking on redeveloping our website. Like, we've had some big work projects in addition to the things that we've had to do outside of work.
Well, and I think, and I'm sure there are a lot of businesses that are going through this right now too, with just the way the economy is. Like there has been a lot of growth this year that not that we weren't ready for growth, we were ready for growth, but it's definitely happening at a little bit quicker of a pace. So then trying to manage that on top of all these other things, and then you put in the personal side of things with Cub Scouts and baseball practices. Like right now is one of those times in the year when we talk about baseball where, spring baseball is ending for my 8-year-old and summer baseball is starting for, well, now 9-year-old, and summer baseball is starting for him. And so it's like there's a practice every day.
Right.
It's definitely hard to try to keep all of that under control.
Well, and time management isn't a skill that we're necessarily taught in school. We had a teacher say to my 4th grader who, hasn't been in school for 2 years because of COVID in the beginning of the year, well, he was bad study skills and time management. And I said to her, well, when was he supposed to learn study skills and time management? We haven't been in school in 2 years.
And I think for a lot of parents, it's hard to manage teaching those skills as well.
Right, because a lot of grown-ups have terrible management skills themselves. We develop habits over time, but do we have the right habits, and do we have habits out of survival mode or because they're intentional?
Right. And I think for, one of the things that we try to do when we get overwhelmed is to sort of take a step back. We have the same 24 hours in a day, Allison. Like everybody's got the same 24 hours. Doesn't change. I know some days feel longer than others. And that's definitely true.
The days are long, but the years are short is what they tell all new parents.
Right. But, I think a lot of times it's like you said, it's trying to be, intentional about your time. So taking a couple of minutes to think about like what you're doing, what you need to do, how you should be spending your time is important.
Right. And again, sometimes we talk about the why. Why are we doing it? Why is it important? Like you just said. And, when I think about why is it important for us to think about our time management right now, we want to be doing the right things at the right time so we can also open ourselves up to learn and make the improvements so that we are being more efficient and tackle the projects that will help move us forward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, and I'm as guilty as this as the next person, I would say if we were to talk about you and me, I am way more guilty of this than you. I tend to deal with the thing that's right in front of me at the moment, and I don't think about necessarily what's moving forward. And I'm like, I'm like the dog in the yard. I'm like, ooh, squirrel. Like I got to deal with this. I got to go fight this fire. I got to go fix this thing. Oh, this person needs from me. And it's hard. And I tend to find myself, I get stuck in these ruts of, I don't deal with something until somebody gets angry that I haven't dealt with it. And so it's challenging to try to break those habits once you get into them. It's hard to get out of that cycle once you're in it.
So what are some of the things you do when you start to feel out of balance or in that cycle? What are some of the tips that you could give somebody else to, if they are starting to recognize that their calendar is controlling them and they don't have time, or there are too many people, fighting too many fires?
Well, I think the first thing, and it was funny, I was reading through our ideas for the show, and I was like, man, I was really bad this week with this item. We have these planners that we use. It's the Full Focus Planner by Michael Hyatt. You can get a link to that. All you have to do is go to our website, marriedwithabusiness.net, go to the resources page. It's right there. But the Full Focus Planner is kind of built where you're supposed to every day write your top 3 things that you need to get done and then list everything else that you need to get done.
Yeah, I call it the brain dump.
Yeah. And you put all of those things that are in your head. You're like, here's all the to-dos that I need to do. And I know some people do yellow sheets and then mark them up. But this way, you put those top 3 things, you get those top 3 things done, and then you go through the rest of the list. And then tomorrow, you're supposed to look at yesterday's list and go, okay, what are the top 3 things I didn't get done yesterday that I should get done today? And I was like, this is a prime example of a week that got away from me. I was really bad about it this week. I think I only did 3 of the 5 working days this week, filling them out in my book. I think the days I do fill it out, I follow it pretty well. But the days I don't fill it out, obviously I'm all over the place. So I think, that's one of the main things I do. Another thing, Allison, that actually I think you taught me long ago was to really work on, taking a time audit, taking a minute to taking 2 weeks really to sort of write down everything that you're doing in a day.
Yeah. So I do this every now and then as well when I start to get overwhelmed, or as we're starting to figure out what tasks I am spending too much time on and need to delegate. When you feel overwhelmed, trying to really figure out how you're spending your time so that you can be more intentional about it. And what I do is you go along during your day, and as you're doing things, you're writing down what you're spending your time on. Every time you check the social media, every time you check an email, every time you complete a task. And it's daunting over that period, but then you can really get a good sense of what are you doing and is that the best use of your time? The last time I did a big one when we were getting ready to bring on another team member is I broke everything out into categories to see what category I was spending most of my time on. Was it bookkeeping? Was it HR? Was it marketing? And then I could see what type of person I needed to bring on to alleviate some of those things for me.
Yeah, I think, when you think about doing it, it doesn't need to be sort of a TikTok minute by minute of your whole day. What you should do is have a yellow pad or scratch piece of paper, whatever you want to do it on, and then write down, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. worked on bookkeeping, 10 a.m. to 10:15 met with project team. I think you need to put it into chunks or put it into, compartmentalize it. You don't have to say 8 breakfast, 7:50. I mean, if you want to, you absolutely can.
Well, it depends on how detailed you want to get.
Right.
The more detail you put in it, the better the results are going to be for you.
And it depends on what is out of balance. I find for me, there are times where I just let my calendar get out of balance. And so it makes me have to I take that time and I break it down, for every day that I'm doing. And then I go back and look at it and go, am I efficiently using these quadrants of time right? Which sort of leads into the next thing that we do a lot, which is reviewing our ideal week. And so again, in the Full Focus Planner, they have a version of this. If you look online, if you search ideal week online, you'll see a ton of other sort of templates on how to help build your ideal week. But how you and I kind of do it a little differently. I break my ideal week down into quadrants. So I'll take a day, let's for argument's sake say Monday, and I'll say, okay, well, from 8 a.m. till 11 a.m. on Monday, I'm in the office focusing on, office tasks, answering weekend emails, answering questions from staff members, whatever it might be, and then I'll block off from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. That can be sales calls or estimating, depending on, so that's how I kind of build my ideal week. You do it a little differently.
I do it kind of by days. So Thursdays is payroll and cut checks days. Mondays is marketing days. Tuesday is general bookkeeping days. So that I don't have to feel guilty about not working on marketing the other days of the week or not working on cutting checks the other days of the week. And, the expectation is I cut checks on Thursdays. If you want to check earlier than that, don't expect it. If I can do it, I might. But I tell people I cut checks on Thursday, so you have them Thursday afternoon or Friday. I do that at home too. So I was getting very overwhelmed when the kids were babies about the laundry and trying to throw laundry in every day. And then I finally just decided, at the time I was working from home on Fridays and Mondays. So I said, Fridays and Mondays I'm doing laundry. The other days of the week, if I don't get laundry done, I'm going to give myself permission for that to be okay.
So if it just to clarify, so for Thursday is your payroll day and pay bills day, does that mean you won't do marketing that day?
No, if I have time, I might. But that my big 3 that I'm going to focus on is going to be related to those tasks. So my big 3 on Thursday is always process payroll, print reports, print checks. And then if I have time to do those other things, then that's okay. But I'm going to get my big 3 related to that task done on that day.
And do you tend to when you think about your day and structuring your day, do you tend to try to get that stuff done as early as possible in the day? Do you allot time for other things and then work on it in the afternoon?
No, for me, I do it in the morning. I know that I'm my most productive in the morning. So I think that if you're trying to set up your ideal week, you have to think about when you're most productive. Come 2, 3 o'clock, I'm not as productive. So I can get more done faster between 7:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning. So you'll tend to see that I get my top 3 done as long as I can focus on it and fires don't pop up in that 3-hour period.
Yeah. Another thing that you and I both did is early on when we first had our first child, daycare was really expensive. And we didn't want to pay for it. So we only did partial daycare where we did some, only a few days versus the whole week. And I worked from home on Wednesdays and you worked from home on Fridays. And so what's kind of happened from that is we decided as our kids finally got into school aged and were gone every day that we kept those days as work from home days. And it allowed us to be, it's like, I call it my no interruption day. Like I'm not in the office. Nobody can, call my phone or knock on my door.
Well, they can call your phone.
Yeah, I know.
They can't walk up and bother you.
They can't walk up and bother. They can't walk into my office. So, and then I have, delegated those days as just days that I work on certain things. Like, Wednesday when I'm home, one Wednesday it might be all estimates. Next Wednesday it might be, if I have to do some design or drawings or takeoffs or whatever it might be. Even sometimes it's owner stuff. It might be, hey, Allison needs me to read this manual. I got to read that day. And you do the same thing on Fridays.
Right.
So I think that's, those are things you have to look at when you're kind of building that ideal week. And I think the hardest thing about it, and this is where I feel I have been bad in 2022, is you build that ideal week, you have it in front of you. It's on my wall at the office to look at every day, but I don't follow it. I've fallen off of it. So what I feel like I have to do right now is I have to stop and reset, and I have to go back and I have to do that 2-week sort of take an audit of what I'm doing with my time and then go back and rebuild my ideal week because maybe it's changed.
Well, and what's good about the planners we use is at the very front of the planner is a blank ideal week. So every quarter they're expecting us to revisit what's our ideal week for the next 90 days.
Right. So it's really good. The other thing that you and I have done, and I actually looked at this recently, it's like 12 years we've been doing this, is using Google Calendar. It's free, it's easy to use, and it really does kind of dictate and control our lives.
Well, what I like about the Google Calendar is that we can see each other's calendars and we can add things so that if things come up, we can block out time for each other. A lot of times what happens with work is you'll have on your top 3 for multiple weeks to get a design done or something. And so either I or one of our assistants will go in and block out time for you.
Yeah, and then I'll notice it. And because we've gone so digital, especially since COVID, we've gone so digital with everything. So whenever people want to schedule meetings with me, they do it through Calendly and it shows up on my Google Calendar. And so there's all of this technology that sort of controls it now. The other thing I've gotten better at is utilizing my calendar to help me keep a little bit more balance in life is I schedule out. I call it out time. I put it in my calendar as OUT out. And maybe it's at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, going to the driving range, or if it's baseball practice, a half hour before baseball practice is supposed to start, I schedule that, or an hour, so that I'm not backing things up so close together. So everything's not so tight and on top of each other. And we have felt for a long time that the Google Calendar is a great way to help us control our time in a day. I think the bad part about it is that now I have this thing that pops up on my computer screen that I look at every single day, and it's always full. So I feel like, I'm always scheduled to do something, but I have to be realistic about, okay, well, you scheduled time here to do nothing, so that's your do nothing time, even though it's scheduled.
Well, and you need to make sure that you're having white space and downtime, and if the best way to have that happen for you is to schedule it, then it's important that you schedule it for yourself.
It's like your parents own a house on a lake and we like to go down there and sit by the dock and fish or do whatever. It has to be scheduled on our calendar. Like we have to go into our Google Calendar and we have to, type in there, go to the lake, and then that'll force us. So we'll look at, we're scheduled to go to the lake that day.
Well, because we won't look at it and say, of course we can help you do this, or we can have a practice here, or let's slide an extra Cub Scout meeting in there.
So that's definitely something that's crazy. Allison, talk about determining in your schedule what's important and what's urgent.
So I recently revisited Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it was one of the first books I had read 20 years ago when I had started at work. And I've kind of always, in the back of my head, followed some of these things. But as we're trying to train some of our team members on what's important and what's not, it's been good to revisit it. And I thought today was a good time to talk about it again with you, especially because I think your schedule keeps getting dictated by fires. Mm-hmm. And then when you don't get to other things, it creates more fires. Right. So, in Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he kind of talks about these 4 quadrants of urgent and important, not urgent but important, urgent but not important, and not urgent and not important. And, important things are the tasks or the goals that are most likely to impact your long-term success. And urgent are those things that require immediate action. You can't delay them. And so when you kind of set up this quadrant model, which we'll post up on the resource page, you can kind of see quadrant 1 where it's important and urgent. These are crisis things. These are pressing problems, deadline-driven things, people who are calling in and complaining, things you have to deal with right away, fires that weren't necessarily in your original top 3. Or quadrant 2, they're important but not quite urgent. That relationship building, the finding new opportunities, the planning, the preventative actions and growth and breaks. These are the things that we need to do regularly so we don't have fires coming up. And if we're not scheduling them in our time regularly, we're going to have those fires. And quadrant 3 is the not important but urgent. Again, interruptions, checking your email, calls that come in that distract you from the things that are already on your schedule, things that are important to deal with quickly. And then the quadrant 4 are the not important and not urgent. Trivial, busy work, time-wasting stuff, some of the calls, some of the activities that you need to deal with eventually. And, just because they're in the not important, not urgent doesn't mean that sometime they won't move into a different quadrant if we don't eventually deal with them.
Yeah, I think taking the time and going through these things and understanding better and learning to understand better as these things come at you, how to keep balance in your time management. I think that's the hardest thing sometimes when people feel like, well, I'm only focused on managing my work time. And this goes for anybody. It's not just about being a business owner, entrepreneur. It's somebody who might have a regular 9-to-5 job. You need to be able to manage your time and balance it and understand, what's important. And even in a relationship, even if you're a husband and wife and you don't work together, you have separate jobs or whatever it might be, understanding and being able to communicate your time to each other is really important. Because in a lot of relationships, that's usually the most frustrating thing. Like, I don't understand why she's not home. She's always at work, And so understanding that time, that balance will not only help you feel better about your day and what you're accomplishing, but probably help your relationship.
Right. And what a good exercise to do after listening to today's episode is, make this quadrant for yourself and list out the things that you think are in each quadrant for your work and personal life. And then how can you adjust your ideal week to address those items? Because if you decide that going on a date with your spouse is, not important and not urgent, and it never moves into another box, it's going to become important and urgent.
Right, exactly. So taking the time to do that, taking the time to do the time audit that we talked about, take a week or 2 weeks and write down your time and what you're doing with your time, and it'll make you more productive. It'll help boost your productivity. It'll help your work-life balance. It'll help you achieve those goals that you are trying to achieve in life and in work.
And again, the reason I think this is important, Craig, is because it's going to help us boost our productivity. Following the time metrics is going to make us more efficient and free up some of those 24 hours because we're going to be working on the right things. And again, give us better work-life balance so that we don't feel like we're constantly running. We're running from this meeting to that meeting, to talk to this person, to work, to, oh my goodness, we forgot to go to the grocery store. And will help us achieve our goals so that we can spend more time on important tasks and together and building the life we want as opposed to running on a hamster wheel.
And I'll tell you another way to start is on us for 30 days. You can get 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you go to audibletrial.com/bizmarried, 30 days free of Audible. You can download Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a great book.
And if you go to our resource page, you can check out Calendly, links to the Full Focus Planner, links to setting up your own Google Calendar. Again, the Audible link, you can grab 30 days free from us, and the notes from Stephen Covey.
Yeah, definitely check it out. marriedwithabusiness.net, our website. Go to the resource page. You can find all of that stuff. And you can find old episodes of our show there too as well. So check that out. You can also look for us on social media. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter @BizMarried, or search for us on Facebook, Married with a Business. Thanks for listening this week, everybody. We really appreciate you tuning in. We've got a couple more weeks of shows coming up. A great show next week with Cadillac Homes. So definitely check that out. And remember, not only is it important to focus on your business, but also your marriage, because we're married with a business.